she's gotten old in the last few months, so she interrupts the show a little more than before, just so you know. The regulars know what's going on. Anybody who's new, I got a senior dog. She's part of the show. Nothing I can do about it, so just understand that. Um, in any case, all right, a little bit more. Trump confirmed that the U.S. is negotiating with Iranian parliamentary speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf, saying, "We'll find out in about a week whether he's someone America can truly work with." Yeah, actually, the experts say he's really not somebody we could work with because he's kind of an old guy on the scene and basically bad. A lot of these guys are very bad. The war games, the war goals, I should say, the war goals have changed again. Secretary Rubio today dropped the new war goals. And, hey, Leslie, check out the new war goals. Listen to this. Rubio, here are the clear objectives of the operation. You should write them down. 1, the destruction of Iran's Air Force. That wasn't on the list before, but whatever. 2, the destruction of their Navy. Okay, that was on the list. 3, the severe diminishing of their missile launching capability. The severe diminishing of their missile launching capability? Does that not sound like a hedge? The severe diminishing. The first 2 were the destruction of the Air Force, destruction of the Navy, and the severe diminishing of their missile launching capability. That sounds like things aren't going too well. And by the way, we learned a couple days ago that we have only been able to confirm that we destroyed a third of Iran's missiles. Only 1/3 of their missiles have been destroyed. We can't confirm that any more of them have been taken out. That's why I think the third goal went from obliterating their missile capability or destroying to severely diminishing, whatever the hell that means. 4, here's the fourth goal, the fourth and final goal. Marco Rubio, as he said, write this, take out your pens and write this down. The destruction of their factories. Their factories? Where did that come on the list? Iran's factory, what, like doll factories or, I don't know, yogurt factories? Like what? Iran's factories? That was never on the list. I mean, guys, the fact that we're 1 month into this war and the list has changed again as to what the war goals are. By the way, did you notice what's missing from that list? Nuclear weapons. I thought that was the number 1 goal of the war, was to get rid of Iran's nuclear weapons program and to make sure they never got one. It's not even on the list anymore from Marco Rubio. And this was the clear objectives of the operation. Write it down. He totally dropped the nukes. Not there anymore. The other one that's not there, Strait of Hormuz. Remember, they kept saying, you've got to reopen the Strait of Hormuz? Rubio dropped it from the war goals. I guess we're not going to reopen the Strait of Hormuz anymore. We're just going to let oil prices and gas prices and natural gas prices stay humongously high because I guess that's what's up. Now, ironically, the Washington Post reports that the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz has perhaps become the most important goal for the administration. That's the weekend reporting. So the weekend reporting is actually the most important goal for the administration is reopening the straits. Rubio didn't even mention it. And the really scary part is the biggest goal of the administration is secretly to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That's where we were before the war. Had we not invaded at all, we would have accomplished our goal of reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Hey, dog, what are you doing? Hey, here. What are you doing here? Oh, my God. Here you go. There, you want a little treat? What do you think? Hey, there you go. Okay. Anyway. All right. What else we got? Regime change. Oh, Trump put out the bullshit again this weekend about regime change. We had regime change because the regime, we killed them and they changed. They put new people and they changed. That's regime change. So he's claiming that that was the other goal from the beginning, regime change. We've got to have reasonable people that are willing to work with us and won't attack Israel, won't attack their neighbors. And now he doesn't care if they're reasonable. They simply have to be new people, because if they're new people, that's okay. Why? I don't know. I don't know. Listen to this. Oh, thank you, Heather. I don't have the thing in front of me. Is that a goat? I think that's a goat, right? That's a wig or a goat? Is that a wig? That's a goat, I think. Yeah, that's a goat. I think that's a goat, isn't it? It is a goat. Which goat would you like, Heather? Sorry, that's a goat gift. We have a little spiraling galaxy. Or, yeah, that's a galaxy. Halloween goat. Halloween goat. One up. Here's Halloween goat. Halloween goat's always good for scary news. One more time. We're going to have to get some gifts when Max is here with like the wig and the Halloween goat so we can show, because Max hasn't done lives before on TikTok. Max Miller from Tasting History is going to be joining us Wednesday night at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, US, 3 o'clock Pacific. He's out in California, I believe, but he's going to be joining us, but he's never done lives before. So I think we're going to have to have you guys do a few gifts. we don't want to interrupt the entire show because if he's talking, I don't want to interrupt him and stuff. But we're gonna have to. It'll be too funny. All right. Regime change. So listen to this from Trump. Trump on Sunday again claimed we've already achieved it. Trump on Sunday, according to New York Times. Trump on Sunday suggested that regime change in Iran has been achieved because so many of its top leaders have been killed, as he sought to show progress in the war. Though Iran's clerical and military establishment remain in control of the country, and its most hardline factions may even have emerged strengthened, Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One, "We've had regime change. The one regime was decimated, destroyed. They're all dead. The next regime is mostly dead," he said. He suggested that Iran had moved on to its third regime and that American negotiators were speaking to a whole different group of people. They've been very reasonable. Well, the guy he listed, who was the Speaker of the Parliament, apparently is not at all reasonable at all. Like everyone said, he's not reasonable at all. Guys, he's just making this shit up. New York Times says that, in fact, these guys are just as bad, if not worse. Listen to this. New York Times, with different leaders in place, Iranian negotiators may have little knowledge about what their government is willing to concede or even whom precisely to ask. What is more, American officials say hardliners within Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards have become more influential, exerting more power than the religious leadership nominally in charge. But whether someone emerged to make a deal and whether that person can persuade others to agree is far from clear. So Trump is going, shake the head. Thank you for the gift, guys. Thank you, Lise. Trump is saying that, we're negotiating with very reasonable people and a lot's getting done. Trump officials are telling the New York Times, actually, the negotiations are living hell because nobody's in charge. Basically, nobody's in charge, and the people who are in charge are kind of afraid to talk to everybody else because they're afraid of getting blown up. So you can't communicate the rules and the orders and stuff, and the new people in charge are the assholes. Basically, the worst religious lunatics are the ones in charge, and Trump is claiming it's all better. We got new people. It's been regime change. I mean, this is, again, I've talked about this before. His lies matter. We are dealing with affairs of states. We're dealing with serious stuff here. His lies matter, okay? And I've said this before, how we're not going to accomplish our goals if we let him lie. For example, when Trump said, I've already fought inflation and won, inflation is over, it means he's never going to fight inflation because he's claimed it's over. Why would you fight something that's over, that's done, right? Same thing with this. He's claimed regime change, even though he has put worse people in power now in Iran. But by claiming regime change, he's done, we can leave. We've just made it worse, right? It's these lies. It doesn't help that America has a blithering idiot as our leader. I'm sorry, who was that from? I'm sorry, I was trying to see who the hat with all the gold was from. Oh, that was Blue. Thank you, Blue. It doesn't help that we have a blithering idiot as our leader, but it's also really dangerous for a war. It puts us all in danger. It makes the war effort more dangerous. It makes our troops it puts our troops' lives more at risk. The Houthi problem. Houthis are back. Woo woo. So these crazy terrorist maniacs in Yemen. The Houthis are a terrorist group, basically, that run half of Yemen. Yemen is a territory or country kind of just southeast of Saudi Arabia, south of Oman or southwest of Oman. Very sad. It's funny. It used to be like a Soviet, or was it North Yemen? I'm thinking it used to be like a Soviet dictatorship, Soviet-aligned dictatorship, and now it's taken over by, terrorists, basically. Well, we've been worried that the Houthis might enter the war because Saudi Arabia so far has been able to ship at least some of its oil, since it can't go through the Strait of Hormuz, out the back way into the Red Sea. Well, the problem is when it goes out the Red Sea and it comes south, it's got to pass the curve, the little cape there, or the horn or whatever, that the Houthis control. And the Houthis today went after Israel, or this weekend, they went after Israel again. And by going after Israel, basically they showed that they're now a party to the war. And the concern is that they're going to go after oil exports as well. So oil prices, of course, rose again today in partial response to the Houthis. So that's another concern. In other words, yet another factor making this far more complicated just kicked in. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, this was a great one. Caroline Leavitt says today, Trump is quite interested in asking Arab nations to pay for the U.S.-Iran war. It's an idea that I know that he has and something that I think you'll hear more from him on. Okay, thank you, Andrea. So Trump has screwed over the Arab countries by attacking Iran without they didn't want us to. Iran responded by blowing up their oil and their natural gas, and their oil exports overall. So our Arab allies in the Middle East have gotten screwed by us. Right? We've cost them tons of money. Thank you, JV, for the gift. Tons of money economically. And Trump is now saying, in addition to that, that he wants to charge them for the war that he imposed on them. He wants them to pay for the war that he started, the war they didn't want, and the war that is being disproportionately happening against them, because those missiles, they're going after our troops, but those missiles are not going after our country, our land. They're going after the land of our Arab friends, Iran's neighbors, the ones he now wants to pay for his own war. I mean, only Trump could do this, like start a war, get all these people killed, get all these people attacked, and then tell the people that you got attacked, hey, I want you to pay for it too. The Economist, Iran is now earning nearly twice as much from oil sales each day as it did before American and Israeli bombs started falling. Iran hit a large number of U.S. planes. Oh, this was interesting. This story happened in the last couple of days, and I saw Patrick. I was going to call him Patrick Stewart. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. You guys know. Oh my God, Preston Patrick. That's actually very funny. I wonder if anybody's called him that before. I'll have to tell him that. Patrick Stewart. Preston Stewart, who's a really good former military guy who does a lot of analyses on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else. Patrick Stewart. That's funny. Thank you for the pirate hat, Ches. Charles. So Preston was talking this weekend that a lot of our planes got hit. I think these are the planes in Saudi Arabia. I think it was the same attack. And we basically had a lot of our planes, our military planes, sitting at an Air Force base, like in the open on the base. Our planes were just sitting there. And the Iranians came and blew them up. A lot of our planes, including some AWACS, apparently. And Preston did a nice broadcast on this where he said, he was kind of pissed. And he said, this is what we've been making fun of the Russians for the last 4 years. In Ukraine, or actually in Russia, right across the border, the Russians were putting their planes on the airfields, like right on the tarmac, exposed, and the Ukrainians were coming and just blowing them up. And we were always making fun of the Russians, saying, like, what kind of idiot in wartime is just leaving their planes open? They're not covered. There's no tarps on them. They're not in hangars. There's nothing. They're literally just sitting on the field waiting to get blown up. And the Iranians blew them up. Mind you, they blew them up a month into the war, right? It's not like, oh my God, sneak attack, Pearl Harbor. Nobody knew the Iranians were coming. We're a month into the war that we started, and our planes are still sitting there. I think it was an E3, actually. WC, I remember seeing that. And he said, it's stupid enough for anybody to leave a plane sitting out there. He goes, but we've been in the war, or the Ukrainians, for 4 years. We've been helping them. We got to witness firsthand what happens when you're an idiot and you leave your planes just sitting on the tarmac. And we did it anyway, after watching the Russians do this for 4 years. Again, Donald Trump's and Pete Hegseth's Pentagon. Bunch of blithering idiots, what these guys have created. Woke? Yeah, he wanted to create a war machine that wasn't woke. I'd like to create a war machine that's at least awake, because these guys, seriously. Oh, man. What else we got? NBC, Russia took satellite images of a U.S. airbase days before Iran attacked the site and wounded Americans, according to President Zelensky. I think this is the Saudi airbase. So Zelensky's saying the Russians took pictures of the airbase, the Ukrainians intercepted the messaging, took pictures of the airbase, satellite pictures, and gave it to the Iranians so they could better hit our troops. Now, mind you, 13, I've got it down below. I believe it's 13. Actually, let me get the actual number here. Hold on. Where is this? Shoot. I had it here. I'm not finding it. I think because I was jumping around in my notes. I think it's 15. 15 U.S. service members were injured, including 5 who were seriously wounded. Seriously wounded is very bad. I mean, seriously wounded is, it could get worse, right? I remember reading that. But 15 U.S. service members were hit. Um, Apparently, in part because the Russians gave satellite imagery to the Iranians so they could injure our troops. And Donald Trump is treating the Russians like they're our best friend. Marco Rubio is running around literally every time he gets asked about the Russians, rather than condemning the Russians injuring American troops, Marco Rubio goes, oh, their information didn't make a difference anyway. He's basically excusing the Russians while they're blowing up Americans, American soldiers, American service members. That man wants to be president. Kind of funny because because he's Donald Trump's Secretary of State, he's having to now be the un-American, anti-American Secretary of State, right? The guy who doesn't like our military, who gets our military killed. I don't know. It's going to be very interesting how he's going to justify this when he runs for president again. Like, literally, our troops got killed on your watch, and you made excuses for the guys who helped kill them, the Russians. You were literally defending the Russians when we were complaining about the Russians getting our troops attacked and killed. You were defending the Russians, saying, oh, it's okay. They're not giving. What they're giving isn't helping. I would suspect satellite imagery of our planes right before the attack is probably pretty helpful. What else we got? Rubio's pissed at NATO again. I don't care. We've got to, after this war is over, we're going to have to reassess our commitment to NATO. Guys, NATO's dead with this president. Donald Trump doesn't care about NATO. Donald Trump hates NATO. Donald Trump made clear in 2000 that if NATO were ever invaded by the Russians, he's not coming to defend you. It's done as far as this administration is concerned. I've said this repeatedly. Treat them accordingly. They don't like you. They're never going to defend you. He has already said he's never going to defend you. I think it was Christine Lagarde who he told back in 2000 and some other people. Little trick for the dog. There we go. He's never coming to defend you. Don't listen to them. When Rubio says, oh, now we're going to have to reconsider whether we come to defend you, somebody needs to literally tell Rubio, you're going to have to reconsider Donald Trump already telling us you're not going to defend us? So are you going to not defend us twice as hard? How does that work exactly, right? I mean, you're not going to come to our aid if the Russians invade. Trump already said, so now you're really not going to come to our aid? Oh, no, that sounds so much worse than not helping me, really not helping me, right? I mean, like, they're just, this is not a serious administration. They're not your friend. They're your enemy, really, in many ways, or at least they're amoral. They're amoral at the very least. Treat them accordingly. They're not your friend. Spain, by the way, said that America is no longer allowed to fly through their airspace while doing all the war stuff. Again, I say good for Spain. I hate to say it because I want the Iranians to lose because the Iranian government is evil. They are evil. But this son of a bitch and the way he mistreats our allies, you know what? If Trump doesn't want Spain and Europe to be our friend, then when we need them, they should say, sorry, you made clear you're not our friend. And maybe that'll teach these guys to make more friends and to treat our friends correctly because we need our friends in order to survive in this world and in order to fight these wars. So, by the way, Trump is also learning, like Spain, gosh, all these years, Trump and Rubio, and not Rubio, but Trump and Vance have been attacking the Europeans and basically calling you people pieces of shit. He's suddenly now complaining because you, who he's attacked and called garbage, and cowards he called you, by the way, suddenly he needs you. Right? This is what is it? It's not the boy that cried wolf. It's not the boy who cried wolf, really. What would the example be? I'm trying to think of what the example, there must be some fable out there that's like, or myth that's about like somebody who keeps saying, I don't need you. And then you do need them. And all of a sudden, once you need them, you go, oh no. But I can't think of what, there's gotta be some myth or something like that. But anyway. All right, what else we got? Thank you, Jesus. Or Jesus. I'm not sure which one you'd be. If I was Zelensky, I would go on TV and say, screw you, Trump, and make a deal with the Saudis and make Saudi friends. Well, thank you for that, by the way. He just did reach a big deal with the Saudis. I think it's with the Saudis. He was just in Saudi Arabia, so the deal has to be, he was just there this weekend. Had to be with the Saudis. He just reached a big deal. It was actually a military deal. But I thought it might have been with Bahrain or somebody, or Qatar too. I'm not sure. In any case, Zelensky is doing it. What's not clear is whether that's enough. The problem is that up until now, the Americans have been providing really good intelligence to the Ukrainians. And apparently, I know remember before when we at least threatened to cut off the intelligence to the Ukrainians, the Europeans could not step in. Europe, it was something that Europe could not make up, could not make up the difference. So it was Qatar too. Yeah, maybe it was. I remember him. I almost want to say the deal was with Qatar, but the meeting that he was walking down the hall was with Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi leader. So that may be why I'm mixing the two of them. He met both this weekend, but the deal might be with Qatar, I think, because I remember it was a military deal with their military establishment, etc. So no, Zelensky's very smart. He's very smart. The Ukrainians have come to the aid of the Middle East, and Trump keeps, because Trump and Putin, Trump keeps dissing the Ukrainians, saying, oh, they're not offering any help to anybody in the region. The Ukrainians have offered help to everybody in the region, and they're helping save lives. And they're also helping save our lives. And Trump doesn't care because Trump literally has to bash anybody who Putin doesn't like. You figure out why. Russia, Russia, Russia. What else we got here? Germany's AfD, they're kind of neo-fascist group in Germany, has called for the U.S. to withdraw its 40,000 troops from Germany. That was interesting. Gasoline prices today were around $3.98 a gallon for regular, down about a penny or so. Oil went up more earlier in the day. It's a little better, but still up. Oil, U.S. is up 3 or 4% to $103 a barrel. Brent crude is up a little over 1% to $114 a barrel. Again, that's still higher than it was. Oil just keeps going up. Jet fuel prices, this is a bad story. Jet fuel prices in Europe have now risen over 100% in a matter of weeks. Alex Macheras, an aviation consultant, says, quote, also, a serious jet fuel shortage is less than a week away across multiple different markets, including at some major European airport hubs, who are informing airlines to prepare for a potential no fuel available here scenario. So European airports are a week away from possibly running out of fuel. That's bad. Axios reports that Republicans in Congress are still considering cutting healthcare spending to Americans to pay for Trump's adventure in Iran. The New York Times says, this was a crazy story. This is not a crazy story. This is a bad story. On the first day of the war with Iran, the United States used a new ballistic missile. It was untested in combat. The New York Times analysis shows it struck a sports hall, an elementary school, sound familiar, and residential areas, killing at least 21 people, including children. Two new polls. Trump's approval is at 33%, disapproval at 62%. Trump's YouGov, U.S. military action in Iran, approval 29%, disapproval 54%. Megyn Kelly, this is interesting. Megyn Kelly is former Fox News person, very MAGA, pretty powerful in her own right among the Trump, the Trump MAGA types. Megyn Kelly today on the Iran war. Now, okay, good that she's criticizing him, bad that she's also defending him. And this kind of made me laugh, okay? Listen to this. Megyn Kelly, as this thing goes south, so mind you, big MAGA personality saying the war is going south. That's interesting. As this thing goes south, we need to know exactly who talked President Trump into it, and what representations were made to convince the president that this was a good idea. Who specifically? You get it? Our favorite leader was tricked. Somebody tricked him. Somebody told him it was a good idea. This war is going south. We need to blame the people who advised the guy who went to war, not the guy who went to war. Not the guy who went to war, right? Poor Donald Trump. He's just the president of the United States. How is he supposed to make the right decision when he's got bad people that he's chosen to surround himself with? Seriously? I mean, could you be a bigger snowflake at this point, right? Poor Donald Trump. It's not his fault that he decided to start a war. That was a mistake, that he doesn't even know why we're there and he keeps changing the reasons. Oh, it's not his fault. Somebody else gave him bad advice and he's too much of an idiot to say no. And too much of an idiot to surround himself with good people. Man. The Pope. The Pope went after J.D. Vance this weekend. Again, the Pope does not like J.D. Vance. This is pretty cool, actually, our Chicago Pope. Listen to this. Quote, "This is our God, Jesus, King of Peace, who rejects war, whom no one can use to justify war. He does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them, saying, even though you may make many prayers, I will not listen. Your hands are full of blood." Oh, I mean, he's talking about Trump, but he's really talking about JD Vance. JD Vance has sort of put himself out there as like an evangelical Catholic, basically. I think that's the only way I could describe him. JD Vance is, I'm pretty sure, wasn't JD Vance a convert? I think he is, because typically the converts are, hey, Mrs. Mahalati, good to see you. Mrs. Mahalati's here, my friend's mom, who cooked me the best Persian dinner of my life. I still remember that rice. I have checked out the recipe many times. I don't have any saffron, but they make this wonderful rice that they kind of make it crusty on the bottom. Anyway, very nice. We had it in law school. It was very exciting. But yeah, the Pope, pretty freaking cool from the Pope. A couple other news stories I wanted to hit on before we then hang out and talk. A U.S. official confirmed that the Army is investigating why a U.S. Army Apache helicopter used taxpayer money to do a flyby of the house of MAGA singer Kid Rock. So basically, they sent at least 2 helicopters to the guy's pool to fly around his pool to say hi or some BS. That costs money. It also, frankly, risks our troops. It risks the equipment because now Trump's not going to want him investigated. The good thing is, in 2.5 years, probably somebody else is going to be president. And if we have a normal person as president, whoever thought they were going to be cute and joyride with our equipment to make MAGA happy, they're going to be going to prison. So let's see what happens. Good, and you can't be pardoned for that, I don't think. 2 months after signing 2 months after signing an executive order threatening tariffs on any country that sends oil to Cuba, Trump now says he has no problem with countries sending oil to Cuba. Taco. The Daily Mail. Now, the Daily Mail, Daily Mail is a British tabloid. I'm going to mention this story because a lot of people are sharing it. I'm not thrilled that this is coming from a British tabloid, frankly. But the Daily Mail says that Stephen Miller, White House aide, ordered Department of Homeland Security to cause confrontations with protesters in advance of the Alex Preddy murder in Minnesota. New York Times says Trump officials are rushing to collect a decade-old FBI files on Representative Eric Swalwell, a Democratic candidate for governor of California. Basically, Trump is using Swalwell had a relationship with some woman who was suspected of being a Chinese spy. I mean, afterwards, he didn't know when he was dating her, but was suspected of being a Chinese spy. Thank you, Mel. And Trump has always criticized him for it because Swalwell's great. He's a big critic of Trump. He's now running for governor of California. Trump ordered the FBI to get all of its files together to basically make them public. All the files investigating this woman in Swalwell. Now, mind you, Swalwell was never charged. They never found evidence of a crime. So nothing. But Trump is going to use the FBI to try to influence the California election. I mean, we're Hungary now. We are no better than Hungary at this point. We are not a real democracy anymore. We are an authoritarian wannabe dictatorship at this point. I mean, we have elections. We can still win the elections. No choice as far as that goes, right? And we are, by the way, we're gonna cream them in November. But at the same time, until we get rid of them, they are doing things that are absolutely un-American and anti-democratic and the kind of things you would see in a dictatorship. But and anybody at the FBI right now should be embarrassed of themselves because you're working for a police state. You're no better than the Soviets right now, than the people working for the Interior Ministry of the Soviet Union, you people. I'm serious. Like you're willing to become the MAGA FBI? Shame on every single person working at the FBI and every single person working at Homeland Security right now, because you are no better than the Soviets. You're frankly no better than the Germans in World War II or anybody who ever worked and enabled an authoritarian state, because they're not the FBI. I used to look up to people. I mean, I had a cousin in the FBI. Like, these are the kind of people, like, I never had criticisms of the FBI. I would never criticize the FBI. I really wouldn't. I mean, obviously, if there's an abuse, I might. But I never had issues with the FBI. But these people now, they simply are the agents of a police state. They're no better than the Soviets, these people at this point. New York Times, Wisconsin, undocumented immigrants perform roughly 70%. Listen to this. Undocumented immigrants perform roughly 70% of the labor on Wisconsin's dairy farms. 70%. The story says, at the O'Hara farm, the Republican family owners worry that the immigration crackdown will hurt their workers and their business. Yeah, well, you know what? If you're Republican, and 70% of your employees are undocumented, maybe you shouldn't have voted for the guy who said he was going to kick out everybody who was undocumented, right? I mean, like, I'm sorry. I'm honestly glad it's happening to the guy at this point. If he voted for Trump, then he got what he deserved. Because the only way these people are going to learn is, when the face-eating leopard eats your face is the only way these people are going to learn, unfortunately. Trump referred to Lukashenko, the dictator of Belarus, one of the worst dictators in the world, BFF of Vladimir Putin, like Putin's best friend in the world, other than Trump. Trump referred to Lukashenko as the highly respected President Alexander Lukashenko. He's not even close to high. I mean, he's one of the worst dictators in the world. Thank you, Red Iron. Keep the gifts coming. Oh, do click the like button and all that crazy stuff on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. I always forget that stuff. Thank you, guys. Finally, Bill Clinton. This was actually a great comment from Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton gave a response over the weekend or today to Trump and Rubio. Trump and Rubio have said repeatedly, this is not our war, about Ukraine, right? And they're saying, we helped the Europeans with their war. It's not our war. Why aren't they helping us with our war in the Middle East? Bill Clinton, quote, we forced Ukraine to give up nuclear weapons, cruise missiles, and strategic bombers. We promised to protect Ukraine from Russia. We made Ukraine vulnerable. So yes, this is our war. What Bill Clinton is talking about, and again, Donald Trump, he's ignorant, but he also loves to lie. Marco Rubio, less of an excuse. Rubio knows exactly what he's doing. Rubio's decided he wants to be president, so he's just going to give up on every pro-military stance he ever had. 1994, okay, Bill Clinton's president. Soviet Union dissolved in 1991. Well, when the Soviet Union dissolved, Soviet Union had nuclear weapons. Those nuclear weapons were spread around. I think Kazakhstan had some, Ukraine had some, main Russia had some, and Ukraine then inherited the nuclear weapons. Well, Ukraine, unfortunately, was convinced by Bill Clinton and the Brits, I think the French were involved too, to give up their nuclear weapons. And we reached, it was called the Budapest Memorandum. Clinton negotiated it. Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons. As he said, they gave up their strategic bombers, they gave up their cruise missiles, but they also gave up their nukes in exchange for a promise from us and the Brits that we will defend you. If the Russians ever dare touch you, we will go to war and we will defend you to the max. And what happened as a result? The Russians attacked them multiple times. The first time we didn't really help them at all. This time around, we helped them a lot, but we didn't help them enough. And we didn't help them enough on purpose because Joe Biden was afraid that Vladimir Putin would get too angry if we helped them too much. So he didn't. Right? I mean, and honestly, it's a great answer from Clinton because that's exactly it. This is our war because we literally signed an international treaty, in essence, more or less a treaty, where we were a guarantor of, not only, and I love the way Clinton put it, not only were we a guarantor of Ukraine's safety, we made them unsafe. We made Ukraine give up their weapons. Had Ukraine kept the weapons, they would have never been attacked by Russia. We forced them, in essence. We coerced them to give up the weapons. We made them so they could be invaded by Russia, and they got invaded. That's the first reason we're to blame. The second reason we're to blame, and it's our war, is we then said if you ever get invaded, we will come and help you. So, yeah. Anyway, all right, that's it for the news. I'm not going anywhere, but we will hang and talk. I'm going to adjust my camera so I can relax a little bit. Eep, adjusting camera down a bit. Hello, dog. I know. Anyway, I know it is very sad. It's very annoying too. Very annoying. Giving dog another little bit. Okay, I've got some of the dog's food here, so I'm giving her little bits to make her feel better. Man, I don't know who that is. What else? And now I'm just petting you now, dog. It's going to be half a century before we're trustworthy again. Michelle says it's going to be half a century before we're trustworthy again. I think so. I mean, the problem is that even if somebody normal takes over the presidency, whether it's a Democrat or just a sane Republican, somebody who actually, believes in America, doesn't support America, doesn't work for America's enemies, doesn't hate the troops, we are always going to be one election away from a crazy person who hates this country getting elected president as a Republican. We're always going to be one election away from some un-American, crazy Trump person getting elected. If you're an American ally, you got to keep that in mind, right? NATO, anytime these lunatics get arrested, they ought to be, get elected, they're not coming to your aid in NATO. They're going to do the same bullshit. They're going to threaten to take Greenland, all this crap. So the problem is you can never trust us again. You can trust the Democrats when they get elected. You can trust a normal Republican if they ever get elected ever again. I don't, even Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio used to be a normal one. I didn't like him, but he was normal. Not anymore. Now he's Mr. Anti-American, pro-communist, MAGA guy, right? So, right? I mean, you see, the funniest thing about Rubio would have been if Trump did, because they're threatening to invade Cuba too, but Trump actually isn't threatening to invade. Trump wants, as he said in Iran, Trump doesn't care that worse people are in power in Iran right now. The Revolutionary Guards guys now have way more power, right? He doesn't care that whether they're religious dictators like the mullahs, whether they're military dictators like the Revolutionary Guard, well, military dictators that are still influenced by the religion, right? Religious fundamentalists like the Revolutionary Guard. He doesn't care if they're in charge in Iran as long as they suck up to him. In fact, I would argue Trump prefers that they're in charge. Trump likes the fact that there is a quasi-Marxist government in charge in Venezuela because they're sucking up to him and they're giving him gold. They are. He loves that, right? Belarus, Lukashenko, what Belarus is doing to its citizens, it is one of the worst dictators on the planet. Trump is praising the guy, loving him because Trump's working deals with him. Trump doesn't want freedom. He doesn't want these people to be free. He doesn't care if the mullahs are still in charge in Iran. He doesn't care that the Marxists are still in charge in Venezuela. Imagine Rubio's, and by the way, Rubio's election campaign, because Rubio wants to be president, when Donald Trump goes into Cuba and replaces the current communist leadership with a communist leadership that's willing to pay him off. And then he's okay with leaving the communists in charge of a dictatorship in Cuba. And Marco Rubio will be responsible for putting in a new, harder line communist dictatorship in Cuba that simply pays off Donald Trump. And good luck running for president then, Marco, because I think not only does Donald Trump not care about there being freedom in these countries, I don't think he likes freedom. Look at Europe. The free countries are boring. And he said this before, he likes the dictators, right? He talked about Kim Jong-un in North Korea and how he liked how his generals would all respond whenever he gave an order because, of course, he'd have them killed. Trump, according to his former chief of staff, Trump said he liked the generals of the German leader in World War II. He literally said, I like H-Man's generals. And his chief of staff goes, sir, you really aren't allowed to say you like anything about that guy. He goes, no, but I like his generals. They were really strong. They listened. They followed orders. He doesn't like democracies. He thinks they're boring. He doesn't want it for himself. I think like I said, he not only doesn't care if these countries have dictatorships, I think he prefers it. Yeah, Putin, exactly. And like I said, Lukashenko is one of the worst dictators on the planet. And remember when he sent his love letter to Kim Jong-un in North Korea? My love letter. Again, something straight guys always talk about is sending love letters to other men, because who among you hasn't talked about sending love letters to men that you negotiate with? Like, there's something wrong with this guy. Anyway. Yep, that story was from a few days ago, Mike. Are they still doing that? Mike was sharing a story about Associated Press saying the Arab governments are urging Trump to keep fighting. There was a story like that came out several days ago, though. Yeah, Gunther, exactly. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Liz. Oh, what else? Oh, man. Sorry, guys. I'm tired. So remember, we still got a few minutes. Remember Wednesday, in 2 days, we've got Max Miller coming on. We're going to have a special show Wednesday night, 6 o'clock Eastern, same time. But we are going to be talking about food history. Max I would call him a food historian. Max digs up old recipes, sometimes 100-year-old recipes, sometimes 3,000-year-old recipes, and makes them and but then talks about the history. He goes on this little tangent. His videos are always about 10 minutes long, and he goes on like a 5-minute tangent, and just talk. But the tangent is the history of like the food and the time. It really, if you like history, it's really interesting. But I like history, but I like food. And I just love it. And then he makes the food and tries the old recipe and tries to recreate it. Uses like original ingredients. I was asking him, we were testing it out today, and I was asking him about it. And I said, you made some Spartan thing, like from ancient Greece, from like 3,000 years or 2,500 years ago. I said, and I just remember it was really disgusting. And he goes, oh, blood, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, that was it. It was the blood dish. They made some dish out of blood. But he makes very cool stuff. So join us on Wednesday. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Tasting history. He's got a new book coming out too. I mean, the book isn't for a year, but it was hideous. No, it was worse than blood sausage. It was very, very bad. Very bad. Can the Iranians cause a threat to us here in America? Yes. What we don't know is their ability, really. We have always worried, I'm talking for 50 years, we've worried that the Iranians might have terrorist cells in America and in Europe, that they basically control and could order to commit acts of terrorism. We just don't know to what degree. But that is a real concern. Yes. Yes. They certainly haven't done anything yet. So either they've chosen not to, or they don't have the ability, excuse me, or they don't have the ability, or they had the ability and we caught them. That's possible too. So it's, you don't know. It could be any of them. Well, that we know of, true. Maybe they did something. Although I think if they did something, we'd hear about it, right? Garam, that's the one I was trying to think of. Yeah, the garam. We do have to remind me. We do have to talk about garam, his disgusting fish sauce that like sits out and rots for 3 months or whatever it is, or 3 years. Is garam a 3-year thing? I think I'm forgetting. Anyway, hello you. I know. Yep, dog is being very antsy today. I think she's not walking as well today too. I can tell. Anyway, what else? Yeah, Jerry, that's just because you are. That's just because you are, Jerry. Bye-bye. Sorry, we had a Russian. A Russian showed up on our YouTube very upset. The Russian left us. Bye-bye, Russian. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Russian. Bye-bye. Yes. No, Sasha's, I think she's not in a very good mood today. I could tell. I mean, she walks, but her walking wasn't as good. And she gets whinier when her walking isn't as good. I hear you. I know. But it also sucks because my dog hasn't been feeling well, so we can't go on the long walks we usually. Like, we go to the park, and at least I'd give her a little, like now she's also just getting bored. So I can tell that. I should be on TV? Well, from your lips, I'd love to be on TV. Did Kash get hacked? Yes. Yeah. Oh, they published, the Iranians hacked Kash Patel, FBI director's private emails. They published a bunch of his old photos and stuff. A doggy stroller, I know. What's funny, now I understand, excuse me, I understand now why people have doggy strollers. I never did before, but now I get it. Because she really can't go that far. I mean, I could make her, but I don't want to make her. I think I could also tell days that we've gone farther, the next day she doesn't do as well. So I can never tell. I get the feeling it's upsetting her a little. But at the same time, this poor dog of mine has always been the neediest dog on the planet. Like she is, my parents' dog would literally sit on your lap all day and be happy. This dog wants to play tennis with you all day or pickleball. I mean, not really, but like she wants to be engaged with you all day. Sleeping, that happens later. Anyway, how do you like here on YouTube? I don't know. Oh, actually, under the video with the description, there should be an up or down thing, Linda, on YouTube, as I recall. What else? I hear you. I know. Hi. I've only got 2 more pieces of food here, dog, so that's all you're getting. Hey! Okay, Jesus Christ, that hurt. God. And she goes for the food and also doesn't quite see it, so she ends up going for my hand. The poor thing, her vision clearly is a lot worse and her hearing is too, so. She's 16 and 3 months, so what do you do? What do you do? You're my old lady now. I know. Yeah, Tiger Woods had another accident or something. What do you do? Give to Sasha what is Sasha's, exactly. Give unto Sasha what is Sasha's. Although I think that quote in the Bible might mean something else. I know. I hear you. I hear you. 24 days left of what? Of what exactly? You are annoying. Sorry, TikTok is giving me that. There we go. That crazy thing to prove I'm a real person. It's so weird that they do that. Again, I guess they must get fakers that come on. Oh yeah, Brenda. I used to think that people who leaned on their grocery carts were out of shape. I'm old now and I do the same. My mom loved grocery carts were amazing because, she had a hard time walking and grocery carts because they were big and lumbersome. So they were the best thing she could support on. And it was great. She loved going to the grocery store because it got her out of the house and she liked shopping anyway, but she got her out of the house and she could, Ward says, I do that at age 32. But it's true. I can imagine, if your walking isn't as good and it's big and it's heavy so that you actually can, except Costco changed their grocery carts so that she could barely use it anymore. Costco changed the grocery cart. It was literally up to her neck. And we told one of the managers who said, do you realize you changed your grocery cart so old people can't use them anymore? And he was like, really? We're like, yeah. I mean, it was a big deal. Again, sort of dumb things that some young person redesigned, and nobody said, when they tested it out, nobody said, maybe we should have somebody old try it and see how they are. You're trying to push like this, yeah. Anyway. Ashley says they're too tall. Yeah, for Mom, they were really too tall. They weren't tall before. They changed, I don't know if it was 6-7 years ago or something, but I remember when they changed because we went up and told one of the managers because she was pissed. I don't blame her, All right, dog, this is your last piece. It's your last piece. There you go. Okay, for now. Greek Orthodox Easter is a week after Catholic Easter. So regular Easter is this coming weekend. Greek Easter is a week after. So we get all the stuff for free at the grocery store. Not for free, for cheap. My mom would always go, because ours is often after the Catholic Easter. She'd always go and buy all the Easter candy after the Catholics, because it's all, no one wants it afterwards, and the Orthodox are all like, yes. It was very funny. Why is it later? Oh, complicated. It depends. It's based on Passover and the full moon. It's something to the effect of it's got to be after the first full moon after Passover, and one of them comes first. But I will bet you that Passover and the full moon have not happened. Both of them have not totally happened. When is Passover? And when is the full moon? Passover is this coming Wednesday. Okay. I'll bet you the full moon isn't until next week. I'm just guessing. But are we heading towards a full moon or are we away from a full moon? I know the moon is almost full, but not full yet, which I think it's becoming full. But I haven't looked at this in years, but I remember it deals with a full moon and Passover, and it's got to be after both. And the Catholic Easter does not have to be after both. The Orthodox one does. So it's getting more full. 2nd of April. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, interesting. Waxing, waning. That's true. Waxing, yeah. In any case, it deals with both of them. And actually, it might even be that Passover itself deals with the full moon. So it might be, we could ask boyfriend. Let's ask boyfriend. Where's my, oops, sorry, dog. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to kick you. Let's ask ChatGPT boyfriend. You asked Alexa, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT boyfriend here. Hold on. All right, ChatGPT. Hold on, oops. Hello, boyfriend. So I'm trying to explain to people why Greek Easter is a week after Catholic Easter. And I vaguely remember it has to do something with the full moon and Passover, and it's got to be after both or something. Explain to people how it's calculated versus the Catholic Easter.
All right, let's break it down simply. Catholic Easter follows the Gregorian calendar, while Greek Orthodox Easter follows the older Julian calendar. That already makes some difference. But here's the key part. Orthodox Easter always comes after the first full moon following the spring equinox, and it also must be after Jewish Passover. Since Passover's date shifts each year, And the Julian calendar calculates the equinox differently. Orthodox Easter often lands later, sometimes a week, sometimes even more. So it's all about the moon, the equinox, and waiting until Passover
Well,
is done.
and how is the Catholic one calculated? They're using the other calendar, but what's the actual calculation? Does it also deal with the moon and the equinox and stuff or not?
Yes, Catholic Easter also involves the spring equinox and the full moon, just like Orthodox Easter. The formula is that Easter Sunday is the first Sunday after the first full moon following the spring equinox.
Oh.
The difference is, Catholics use the fixed date of March 21st as the equinox based on the Gregorian calendar, and they don't have that Passover condition. So both rely on the moon and equinox, but the calendars and extra rules differ, which
Okay.
is why they often end up on different dates.
Okay, so for Orthodox, Greek Orthodox like me, it's got to be after Passover, which the Catholics don't do, but it's also got to be, but it's also using a different calendar to determine the equinox, which is why, even though the Catholics also look at the equinox, it's a different calendar for the equinox. So equinox is on a different day.
Exactly, you've got it. Orthodox Easter uses the Julian calendar's version of the equinox, which drifts later over time. And it must fall after Passover. Catholics just fix the equinox at March 21st Gregorian and don't depend on Passover. So the
So
calendars
when is the equinox under the Orthodox calendar?
in the Julian calendar, which Orthodox churches use for calculating Easter, the spring equinox is also considered March 21st. The difference is that the Julian calendar currently runs about 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar. So when the Gregorian calendar says March 21st, the Julian calendar's March 21st is actually around April 3rd in the modern Gregorian system. That's why everything shifts later. So in short, Orthodox equinox is the Julian March 21st.
Okay. See, okay, so I was not wrong. It's just way more complicated, but I was basically right more or less. No, I was right, but it's complicated. Yeah, you get it now. So there you go. Yep. Now you know. But I did not remember. I forgot that about the two different calendars. Yeah, just to be very complicated, the calendar thing. It's kind of funny that we're still using the old calendar. Um, yeah, yeah. But I always remembered the Passover thing and the full moon, but um, but I did not know about the equinox, which was the third rule, and the equinox is what Passover is the same, full moon is the same, but the equinox changes. Oh, actually, and for the Catholics, I think they don't require Passover to happen first. We do. So anyway, there you go. Sometimes our Easter is a month later. Yeah. So it is very complicated. I know. Well, it's funny. You kind of don't, you don't, well, it's funny because most other holidays, well, the Arabs do. Ramadan changes every year, Easter changes. I don't know if there's other holidays, if there are other holidays that shift around every year. That's a good question. I could ask Chat. Does anybody else know? Are there other holidays that jump around? I mean, unless it's like, Chinese New Year or something. Thanksgiving. Yeah, Thanksgiving jumps around. That's true. That's true. It's the third Thursday. Memorial Day, Chinese New Year. Hanukkah moves too? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't really understand why Thanksgiving has to be on a Thursday. We could check, but yeah, we know Easter jumps around, of course. We're almost at 7:15. All right. About to call it quits. Hello? Oh my God. Okay. Jesus. The dog is, will you stop? The dog is now, she's jumping on my chair and pushing. Stop. She's jumping on my chair and shoving my chair. Like, okay. Jesus. Black Friday, exactly. Black Friday shifts every year. That's true. That would be another holiday that does change. You're right about that. Canadian Thanksgiving, second Monday, but that's like our Thanksgiving, where ours is like the fourth Thursday, I think is. Hi, hello. Oh, will you be careful? I don't want you jumping up. What is wrong with you? She keeps jumping up on my chair. The dog is crazy today. All right, I'm going to go, guys. It's 7:15. Thank you for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow night.